'cause it's the worst year of my life again. It's looped around and...
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle. Well, it's 2021, a brand new year.
And what better way to start it than by doing what I love, taking a dump on Hasbro. Yeah, I don't see them commemorating my work with an action figure anytime soon. But judging from the comments on my Snow Serpent review, you guys really wanted to see this.
Let's set the historical scene.
The G.I.Joe, a real American hero line, ended in 1994, and there wouldn't be any toys until 1997. Oh, there'd still be G.I. Joe in the form of Sergeant Savage and Extreme, but the 3 3/4 inch line was dead.
At the same time, kids who grew up in the early to mid 80s were now young adults and were starting to feel nostalgic for the toys.
Also, the internet was beginning to become a thing, leading to them meeting online in newsgroups and on mailing lists, etc. This was before Google was up and running. We had to Alta Vista or ask Jeeves and crap.
I will sing you the song of my people.
Okay, I think we're getting off track here. 1997 marked the 15th anniversary of the Real American Hero line, so Hasbro decided to honor this occasion with a Toys R Us exclusive collector's edition toy line. It was also the 10th anniversary of G.I. Joe the movie.
But that was treated with much less fanfare for reasons I can't fathom.
There were gonna be figure 3-packs, vehicles, and a huge 8-figure pack. There was much rejoicing and praise for Hasbro in the G.I. Joe community.
Then the products actually came out and everything was foobarred.
And in so many ways. Most of them because Hasbro tried to do things as cheap as possible.
Let me take you through them in no particular order because this is the top list.
Let's start with the toy molds. Hasbro wasn't gonna create any new molds for these figures, as that would, cost money, so they would use the existing molds from the original toy line.
But honestly, everybody was okay with that.
Yeah, fans were eager to see the original figures with updated modern paint applications, and Hasbro would be using the first or sometimes second version of the characters, so it hit that nostalgic sweet spot. So product mock-ups were made, old toys repainted to see what they'd look like, and everything looked sweet. So they started creating the packaging. So far, so good.
Then they couldn't find a lot of the molds.
There were a variety of reasons for this. Some may have been on loan to other companies, some may have been damaged, and some couldn't be found because even though Hasbro is a billion-dollar company, the warehouse with all their old stuff, probably the size of that Indiana Jones one, was extremely disorganized. And you just know they had like one guy go in there to find all the G.I. Joe stuff. So with many old molds unaccounted for, what was the solution? Bite the bullet and make new molds?
Ha! No, that would cost money.
And to be fair, it would delay the toy line considerably, so they went Dr. Frankenstein and used molds they could find to cobble together figures.
In some cases, this was okay.
Like the Viper having the Battle Android Trooper legs, or Snake Eyes having a different waist piece. This really wasn't a big deal.
In other cases, however,
Breaker and Rock'n'Roll ended up looking nothing like their originals, and Flash was gone from the lineup altogether. Rock'n'Roll may be the worst affected, but the most iconic screw-up was with Cobra Commander. Instead of the original, they just used the Battle Armor one and painted it blue. Slightly less iconic there, I think you'll agree. They also used the Frostbite mold and called it Blizzard.
That brings me to my next point.
Remember a few paragraphs ago when I mentioned that they had created the packaging before finding all the molds? Yeah, that meant that the card art in no way resembled the finished product. It proudly featured character art of Cobra Commander version 1, Blizzard version 1, and so on and so forth. Now, the solution here would be to change the card art.
But that would, again, cost money.
And, again, to be fair, would further delay the product launch, so they just kept the art and called it good.
It was not good.
They did come up with a solution to this problem for the 1998 figures though, by simply not having card art. Literally the cheapest possible solution outside of just offering the figures in a clear plastic bag. And in a way it was a good thing that there was no card art, since they would have probably put the Cobra Trooper and Officer card art on the Troops pack, even though they had to use the Viper mold with the bat legs, remember, for those figures. Speaking of being cheap, using the exact same mold for 3 different characters in 2 years deserves some kind of Ebenezer Scrooge award. This 1998 talk reminds me of my rant in my Snow Serpent review and brings me to my next point.
The quality of the plastic.
Like I mentioned a few weeks ago, this is the worst kind of yellowing I've ever seen on figures that I own. And the sad part is, the 1998 figures were of a far better quality than the 97 ones. That plastic just feels really cheap and is a lot softer than that of the original toys. This means that the figures can have trouble holding their weapons. But I guess softer plastic also means they are less likely to break their waist piece, like when you accidentally drop them, or like when you're replacing their O-rings.
And you will be replacing their O-rings.
Because even their O-rings are a cheaper type than the originals. A lot of my figures from the 80s still have the ring they came with. Sure, some might be a bit loose, or very loose even, but they still work. The 97 and 98 ones, now those don't get loose. They don't have the time because they snap. I've had to replace a lot of them already. Hell, funny story, when I was getting the Firefly figure for the Snow Serpent review, I ended up with just his torso in my hand as his ring had snapped.
Okay, I don't really have a segue here, so next let's talk about the paint applications. I can sum them up with one image.
I think their quality control guy must have been on vacation because some of these look really sloppy. Duke probably got the worst of all. He was nicknamed Drunk Dookie by the fandom. Though, after all the other things I've mentioned in this video, the paint is probably the least of this line's worries. A bigger worry, one that would become a real problem in later years, was that copyrights were beginning to slip. That's why the 1998 Stinger Jeep was called the Rattler, even though that's the name of, you know, the iconic plane. And they didn't even learn from this warning since it got so much worse in later years. Hello there, General Tomahawk.
I'll end my deluge of derision by pointing something out that is an example of Hasbro being cheap, but ultimately didn't affect the quality of the product.
The file cards weren't written by Larry Hama. Now, that isn't a problem. Quite a few of the old cards weren't written by him either. The 1997 and 98 ones were written by fans. That's also not a problem. I'm a fan. I'd want to do that too.
No, the problem is they weren't paid for their work.
Why pay a writer when you can have fans do it for free, right? Now I know what you might say, but Timmer, you Grinch, they were fans. They were doing it because they love their hobby.
Yeah, well, I love my hobby too, collecting and making videos, and I sure as hell get paid.
You can pay me right now if you join my Patreon, in fact. Now, for the record, these fans knew going in they wouldn't be paid, and yes, they were thrilled to do it. And they did get a free complete set of the collector's edition toy line out of it from Hasbro, so there was some compensation. And they're happy about it to this day. But still, billion-dollar corporation.
Pay the people who do work for you!
And that's all the bad stuff I have to say. Now, nobody starts out wanting to make a bad product, with the exception of UA Ball.
No, really, Google that. He makes terrible movies for tax breaks.
And some of this was beyond Hasbro's control. The missing molds is just something that's going to happen when you have so many of them in various locations. And making the packaging before you have the product is an industry standard, so I don't blame Hasbro for these initial screw-ups.
What I do blame Hasbro for is that every problem this line had, every single one, could have been solved by them throwing money at it.
Lost molds? Make new ones. Card art doesn't match? Redo it. Use better quality plastic. I could go on here, but you get the point. So now, after all this ranting, does this mean I hate the 97 and 98 lines?
Well, no. There's good stuff in there. Great stuff even.
You'll note that apart from the copyright thing, I haven't said anything about the vehicles, because most of them were good. The Slugger never came out in Belgium, so I was thrilled to get this desert version. Same with the Mobat. And for the first time ever, they put out an honest-to-God army builder set with the troops pack, something I took full advantage of. Plus, these lines meant G.I.Joe, a real American hero, survived. And it proved there were enough collectors out there to make it profitable.
Without these toys, would we be able to pick up a HISS tank at Walmart at this very moment? Well, maybe, but I'm not so sure.
So thank you, 1997 Duke. Now go home, you're drunk.
Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing?
'cause it's the worst year of my life again.